The pod's hatch hissed open, and Jack's senses were immediately assaulted by the thick, floral air of an alien world. His head throbbed from the rough crash landing, but before he could take stock of his surroundings, shadows loomed over him. Jack squinted upward and froze. Towering figures, women, at least 20 feet tall, encircled him. Their features were strikingly beautiful but exaggerated in an otherworldly way. Sharp cheekbones, flowing hair that shimmered like molten gold, and eyes that glowed softly. Jack's first thought, "Am I dead?" His second, "Are they going to eat me?" He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own escape pod as the women murmured to each other in a language that sounded like wind chimes and thunderclaps mixed together. One of the giants, the apparent leader, stepped forward. Her flowing garments, adorned with strange glowing patterns, made her look both regal and intimidating. She knelt, her face now closer to Jack's, and he saw kindness in her glowing violet eyes. But when she reached toward him, Jack yelped, stumbling back further and landing on his rear. "Whoa, whoa! No touching! I'm fragile!" he blurted, waving his arms wildly. The leader tilted her head, clearly not understanding, but the gesture made her smile. She spoke in her booming, melodic language, and the others nodded enthusiastically. Jack, still sprawled on the ground, could only guess at what was being said. "They're planning how to cook me," he thought, his inner monologue running wild. Asterisk, maybe they'll use some kind of alien barbecue sauce. Do I even taste good? I've been eating nothing but freeze-dried meals for months. Asterisk. The leader clapped her hands, and suddenly, the others sprang into action. Giant fruits, glowing with strange hues, were brought out on massive leaf platters. One woman poured a sparkling liquid from a container the size of a barrel into a stone goblet, setting it before Jack with a reverent bow. Jack blinked. "Okay, maybe they're not cannibals. Or is this an appetizer?" The leader gestured toward the feast and smiled warmly. Her tone softened as she spoke again, pointing to Jack, then to herself, and finally to the group of women behind her. Jack stared, dumbfounded, before attempting to respond. Thanks? For whatever this is," he muttered, motioning awkwardly toward the food. "I guess I'll eat." Taking a cautious bite of the glowing fruit, Jack was surprised by its sweetness. He hadn't realized how hungry he was until that moment, and within minutes, he was devouring everything in sight. The giants watched with amused expressions, whispering to each other. As Jack wiped his mouth on his sleeve, the leader stepped forward again. She began an elaborate series of hand gestures, clearly trying to communicate something important. She pointed to Jack, then to herself, then to the group, and finally made a motion that looked suspiciously like cradling a baby. Jack frowned. "Wait, are you saying you want me to babysit? Or do you guys have kids somewhere?" The leader's gestures became more urgent. She mimicked planting something in the ground, then pointed to Jack and made the cradling motion again. "Oh, planting! Farming! You want me to help you grow food or something?" Jack guessed, nodding to himself. "I'm not much of a gardener, but sure, I'll give it a shot." The women exchanged glances, and a ripple of laughter spread through the group. Jack's confidence wavered. Asterisk, why are they laughing? Did I just say something stupid? Asterisk. The leader stepped closer, her expression serious now. She pointed to Jack's chest, then to herself, and repeated the cradling motion. This time, she added a gesture that unmistakably mimicked a kiss. Jack's eyes widened. "Wait, no? That's not… No! That can't be what you're saying." The women nodded eagerly, clearly misunderstanding his reaction. One of them reached down and gently patted his head, as if to reassure him. Jack scrambled to his feet. "Okay, hold on. I think there's been a huge misunderstanding here. You don't want me to." He couldn't even finish the sentence. "I'm just a guy. A very small guy compared to you. This wouldn't even… how would it? Nope, not going there." The leader clapped her hands again, and the women erupted in cheers. Jack's protests were drowned out as they lifted him onto their shoulders, carrying him toward what appeared to be a massive ceremonial hall in the distance. "This is not happening," Jack muttered, clutching onto one of the giant's shoulders for dear life. This cannot be happening. I need an adult. Wait, I am the adult! Oh God, help me! As they carried him off, the leader walked ahead, her posture regal and determined. Jack could only watch helplessly as the realization sank in. Whatever these giants wanted from him, he was in way over his head. The ceremonial hall was a marvel of alien craftsmanship, constructed from massive stones etched with glowing symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jack was set down gently in the center of the vast chamber, his head whipping around as he tried to take in the surreal surroundings. Above him, the domed ceiling shimmered with constellations that seemed to shift and dance. The leader stepped forward again, her expression serene but purposeful. This time, she held a staff adorned with luminous crystals, which she tapped against the ground. The sound echoed, and Jack felt a strange vibration course through him. The other women formed a circle around them, their glowing eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him break out in a cold sweat. Okay, Jack stammered, raising his hands defensively. Can we just, talk about this? I feel like there's a lot of room for clarification here. The leader tilted her head, clearly puzzled, and began to speak in their melodic, incomprehensible tongue. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. Right, of course. Language barrier. Fantastic. The leader then raised her hand, and one of the other women stepped forward carrying a glowing orb. She placed it in Jack's hands, and the warmth of it spread up his arms, making his skin tingle. Before Jack could question what was happening, the orb emitted a soft hum, and suddenly, he understood the leader's words. We apologize for your confusion, small one, the leader said, her voice now clear in Jack's mind. We are the Matrika, guardians of this land. You are the first of your kind to arrive here in many cycles. Jack blinked. Wait, you're saying, you can understand me now? And I can understand you? The leader smiled. Yes. The orb bridges our thoughts. It is a tool of connection. Jack exhaled in relief. Great! That's great. So, about earlier, what exactly do you want from me? The leader's expression softened, but her tone remained firm. Our people are in peril. The Matrika cannot thrive without new life. Our ways have kept us strong for centuries, but time has taken its toll. We seek your aid to ensure our survival. Jack's stomach sank. You're talking about reproduction, aren't you? The leader nodded solemnly. Yes. You are compatible with our kind. Your arrival is a blessing from the stars. Jack stared at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I'm sorry, but this is insane. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some intergalactic donor. The leader raised a brow. Your reluctance is understandable. This is not a request we make lightly. But your presence here is not mere chance. It is destiny. Jack threw his hands up. Destiny? Lady, I crash-landed here because my ship malfunctioned. That's not destiny. That's bad engineering. The other women murmured among themselves, their glowing eyes darting between Jack and the leader. The leader stepped closer, her massive form casting a shadow over him. Your world may see chaos and chance, but we believe all events serve a greater purpose, she said. You have the power to save us, Jack. To bring new life to a dying people. Jack shook his head, pacing in small, frantic circles. Okay, but you're talking about a lot of pressure here. And let's not ignore the obvious. There's a size difference. Like, a huge size difference. The leader's lips curved into a faint smile. Our people are adaptable. You may find us more accommodating than you expect. Jack stopped in his tracks, his face flushing. That's not making this less weird. One of the other women stepped forward, her tone gentle. We do not wish to cause you distress, small one. If this burden is too great, we will not force you. But we ask you to consider the weight of our plight. Jack groaned, rubbing his temples. Look, I get it. You're in trouble, and you think I'm the solution. But this is a lot to process. I'm not exactly hero material, you know? The leader placed a hand over her heart. You underestimate your worth, Jack. Strength is not always found in size or might. Sometimes it is found in compassion. Jack looked up at her, startled by the sincerity in her voice. He sighed, his shoulders slumping. Compassion, huh? You sure know how to lay on the guilt trip. The leader's expression softened further. It is not guilt we seek to inspire, but understanding. You have the choice, Jack. But know that your decision will shape the future of an entire people. Jack groaned again, throwing his head back. Fine. I'll think about it, okay? But I'm not making any promises. The leader inclined her head. That is all we ask. For now. Jack felt the tension in the room ease as the other women relaxed, their watchful gazes softening. One of them approached with another platter of glowing fruit, offering it to Jack with a warm smile. Great! Jack muttered under his breath, taking a piece. Trapped on an alien planet with giant women who want me to save their species. Just another day in the life of Jack the unlucky space explorer. As he bit into the fruit, the leader stepped aside to confer with the others. Jack watched them warily, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that his crash landing had set something much larger into motion, and that his role in this strange new world was far from over. Jack spent the next few hours wandering the village, a mix of awe and apprehension swirling in his chest. The Matrika had given him space, perhaps sensing his need to process the gravity of their request. Despite the surreal situation, he couldn't ignore the beauty of the world around him. Towering trees stretched into the sky like living skyscrapers, their leaves shimmering with iridescent hues. Strange, bird-like creatures flitted between branches, their calls echoing like melodies. Every now and then, one of the giant women would pass by, offering him a polite nod or a gentle smile. Their presence was as intimidating as it was captivating, and Jack couldn't shake the surreal feeling that he was caught in the middle of some bizarre dream. Yet, no matter how much he tried to rationalize or deny it, the reality of their plight kept gnawing at the back of his mind. His wandering brought him to a massive open courtyard where several Matrika were gathered. They seemed to be engaged in some kind of communal task, weaving luminous fibers into intricate tapestries. Jack hesitated at the edge of the space, not wanting to intrude, but one of the women noticed him and beckoned him closer. Tentatively he approached, his gaze shifting between the tapestry and the women's focused faces. The designs were mesmerizing, depicting scenes of Matrika life, bountiful harvests, ceremonial dances, and families gathered under the glowing constellations. It was a glimpse into a culture he couldn't fully understand but found himself respecting nonetheless. One of the women, a younger-looking Matrika with bright, curious eyes, leaned down to speak to him. Do you find our work pleasing, small one? Jack nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Yeah, it's incredible. You're telling stories with this, right? The woman's smile widened. Indeed. These threads carry the essence of our people's history. They remind us of where we have been and guide us toward where we must go. Jack ran a hand through his hair, his mind spinning. That's heavy. You've got a whole legacy here, huh? The woman's expression grew somber. Yes. And that legacy is in danger of fading. Without new life, there will be no more stories to weave. Jack's stomach churned at the reminder of why he was here. He shifted uncomfortably, kicking at the ground. Look, I get it. You're all in a tough spot. But this is a lot for one guy to handle, you know? The woman tilted her head, studying him. You bear a great burden, small one. But burdens shared are burdens lessened. Jack barked out a laugh, though it was tinged with bitterness. Yeah, well, sharing isn't exactly my strong suit. I'm more of a keep-to-myself kind of guy. The woman's gaze didn't waver. Perhaps that is why you were brought here. To learn that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outward and change the course of a people's destiny. Jack opened his mouth to retort but found himself at a loss for words. Instead, he turned back to the tapestry, tracing one of the glowing threads with his finger. He couldn't deny the beauty of their world or the sincerity of their plight. Still, the weight of their expectations felt like it might crush him. As he stood there, another Matrika approached, a tall, regal woman who carried herself with an air of wisdom. She regarded Jack with a calm, assessing gaze before speaking. You seem troubled, small one. Would you care to share your thoughts? Jack sighed, leaning against a nearby stone pillar. Trouble doesn't even begin to cover it. You're all looking at me like I'm some kind of savior, but I'm just me. A guy who got unlucky and crash-landed on an alien planet. The regal woman nodded slowly. It is true that we see you as a symbol of hope. But symbols do not carry meaning until they are embraced. You have the power to decide what your presence here will mean. Jack rubbed the back of his neck, frustration bubbling to the surface. Yeah, but why me? Out of all the people in the galaxy, why did I have to be the one to stumble into this? The woman's lips curved into a faint smile. Perhaps the stars saw something in you that you have yet to see in yourself. Jack groaned, throwing his hands in the air. Great. More cryptic wisdom. Just what I needed. The woman chuckled softly, the sound warm and reassuring. Take your time, small one. The answers you seek may not come easily, but they will come. And when they do, you will find clarity. Jack shook his head, exhaling deeply. Clarity, huh? We'll see about that. He spent the rest of the day immersing himself in the village's rhythm, observing the Matrika as they went about their lives. Despite their towering forms and otherworldly features, there was a humanity to them that he couldn't ignore. They laughed, worked, and shared meals together, their bonds evident in every interaction. As night fell, the constellations above began to glow more brightly, casting the village in a soft, ethereal light. Jack found himself sitting at the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast, alien landscape. The leader approached, her presence quiet but commanding. You seem deep in thought, she said, her voice gentle. Jack nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Yeah. This place, it's something else. And you're all something else, too. It's hard to wrap my head around it. The leader sat beside him, her massive form surprisingly graceful. It is natural to feel overwhelmed. But you have shown great courage in staying with us, despite your fears. Jack snorted. Courage? Is that what you call it? Feels more like stubbornness. The leader smiled. Perhaps they are not so different. Stubbornness has its place, but so does trust. Trust in yourself, and in those who believe in you. Jack fell silent, her words sinking in. He still didn't know if he could do what they were asking of him, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of something he hadn't expected, hope. Jack found himself at the heart of the village once again, this time surrounded by the entire Matrika community. The air buzzed with anticipation, their luminous gazes fixed on him as if he carried the fate of their entire race in his hands. It wasn't the kind of pressure he was used to, or comfortable with, but he was learning to roll with it. Sort of. The Matrika leader approached, her expression softer than he'd seen before. We have given you time to consider, Jack. Whatever your decision, know that we respect it. Jack shifted his weight from one foot to the other, glancing around at the towering women surrounding him. Their faces held a mix of hope, patience, and quiet understanding. It was unnerving, being the focus of so much attention, but there was no malice or manipulation in their eyes. Just sincerity. He cleared his throat, running a hand through his hair. Look, I'm not gonna lie. This whole situation? It's insane. A week ago, I was just some guy trying to fix a busted ship. Now I'm what? Your only shot at survival? That's a lot to dump on someone, you know? The leader inclined her head. We do not wish to burden you, Jack. But we cannot ignore the truth of our predicament. You are here, and we believe that is no coincidence. Jack laughed, though it lacked humor. Yeah, I've heard the whole destiny thing. Still not sure I buy it. Another Matrika, the one with the curious eyes who had spoken to him earlier, stepped forward. It is not destiny we seek, small one. It is partnership. A future shared, not dictated. Her words caught Jack off guard. He blinked, processing their meaning. Partnership, huh? That's different. The leader nodded, her gaze steady. You are not a tool or a means to an end, Jack. You are a person, and we see you as such. Whatever choice you make, it will be yours alone. Jack exhaled slowly, the weight of their sincerity pressing down on him. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't being cornered or coerced. They were giving him an out, a way to walk away if he wanted to. And yet, the thought of leaving them behind, knowing what was at stake, made his chest tighten. He looked around at the faces of the Matrika, at their hopeful yet patient expressions. They had built a life here, a beautiful and intricate culture that deserved to endure. And maybe, just maybe, he had a part to play in that. Taking a deep breath, Jack finally spoke. All right. If we're gonna do this, we do it on my terms. No weird rituals, no pressure. We take it one step at a time. Got it? The leader's lips curved into a small, relieved smile. Of course, Jack. We will honor your wishes. The gathered Matrika let out a collective sigh of relief, their glowing eyes brightening with renewed hope. Jack felt a strange mix of pride and apprehension at their reaction. He wasn't used to being anyone's hero, but maybe it was time to embrace the role, at least a little. Over the following days, the village seemed to come alive with new energy. The Matrika worked tirelessly to prepare for the future, weaving new tapestries and building structures that symbolized renewal. Jack found himself drawn into their daily lives, learning their customs and even sharing a few laughs along the way. Despite his initial reluctance, he began to feel a sense of belonging among them. They treated him not as a savior but as an equal, someone who could contribute to their community in his own way. It was a far cry from the solitary life he'd led before, and while it was still overwhelming at times, it was also fulfilling. One evening, as the constellations painted the sky with their ethereal glow, Jack sat with the Matrika leader by the communal fire. She studied him for a moment before speaking. You have done much for us already, Jack. More than we could have hoped for. Jack shrugged, poking at the fire with a stick. Yeah, well, I'm still figuring things out. But I guess I don't mind sticking around. For a while anyway. The leader's smile was warm and genuine. Your presence is a gift, small one. And we are grateful for every moment you choose to share with us. Jack glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. You know, you're pretty good at this whole inspirational speech thing. Ever thought about writing a book? The leader chuckled softly, the sound like music. Perhaps one day. For now, I am content to weave our story into the fabric of our lives. Jack nodded, the weight on his shoulders feeling just a little lighter. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.